Good morning, universe. How are we all doing this morning? So today I am going to talk about joyful discipline. Joy and discipline, I think, are so often, unfortunately, set at odds with one another. And I apologize if I'm uh, difficult to hear. The leaf blower in the distance should stop soon. I want to talk about this because it feels like it builds on my topic of self-affirmation from yesterday. Um, the the distinction that I always make for myself, and that actually my one of my teachers used to talk a lot about, was, as silly as it sounds, follow joy. And why is that? Why is it actually important to follow joy rather than to follow only this forced discipline, right? That discipline has to be something painful or else it's not properly disciplined. So for me, there's this distinction that I think is really easy to forget about, which is that discipline and obsession are often conflated with each other. Because I can't stop something and I'm maybe compulsed, have a compulsion to take something or be good at something or make something mine, I become very disciplined. But discipline is not the same as obsession, and obsession is definitely not the same as discipline. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to kind of give us a little bit of a definition of discipline. Discipline for me is something that we do regularly or often or with consistent frequency. The idea, sorry, it's just going to get worse, I think. The idea of joy is something that I think our culture has kind of made evil, right? Like if I'm following my joy, then that means I'm not working really hard. And if I'm not working really hard, then I'm not being a good Christian. I'm not following the Protestant work ethic. But for me, the merging of the two becomes extremely important. Because if I'm just doing something with no joy behind it all the time, based on this compulsion to be able to take and own something, then I'm not really allowing myself the fullness of my practice. I'm not really allowing myself to engage in something that is going to release positive chemicals into my body, right? I'm only equating this sort of drumbeat of self-annihilation as I engage with my discipline. So maybe I'll use this opportunity to bring in a phrase that I really pissed off Biz one day with using. Loose consistency, right? It's I gotta laugh in the other room. It's not that I'm doing this because I have to annihilate myself, right? I'm doing it because it's right and it's time and I'm following the flow. And if I follow the flow of my joy and it leads me to doing something consistently, then it's going to release positive chemicals in my brain every time I do that action. And I'm going to feel really positively about that action, which makes me more likely to do it again. So back to this skill acquisition frame that I was talking about yesterday, right? Which is, if we only have negative chemicals being released around our work, then we're less likely to engage with it, and it's less likely to be nutritive or generative for us. The interesting thing is, if you go and you study the research about who gets really good at what, you find that actually age and the time that you're born throughout the year has a lot more to do with being a successful athlete than talent, right? Talent isn't a thing. It's a conflation of effort over time. But why is it that those people who are born at the right time of the year become successful athletes for their relative season? Because they're older and more physically developed during the peak season of that sport, which makes them more physically capable of performing the action, which makes them feel better about performing the action, which makes them more likely to continue performing the action, which makes them more likely to get good at performing the action. Because talent only exists to a point. Beyond that, whether you want to call it the 10,000 hour rule, you want to call it the way of 10,000 cuts, you want to refer to it as, kind of mindful acquisition of a skill, it always takes the relatively the same amount of repetitions to get good at something. There's really very little you can do to speed up the process. It's just about doing it. It's just about repeating the action over and over again and getting good at it over time. And we get good at it, and I think I've mentioned this a number of times, because we are a nervous system, right? We are a series of circuits and wires that connect through each other. By repeating an action, we myelinate that circuitry, effectively grooving it and making it faster, right? And easier. Everybody can relate to when they try to do something with their left hand for the first time, it feeling really awkward. And that feeling of awkwardness, I think, is honestly, we can now acknowledge that is your brain saying, hey, this doesn't feel so good. How do I do this? And as we develop ourselves, as we develop a skill, as we myelinate that particular circuitry, it feels less awkward. And so moving through awkwardness is really why the discipline thing is so important, because we have to say, well, this might not feel so good for me to do. And in order for me to get good at it, in order for it to feel better, I have to be disciplined about my practice, which means, again, coming back to this consistency. But we have to feel good about it on some level, or else what's the point? Am I just like wailing on myself to be good at something, or am I feeling good about it while I'm doing it? And so this is where, again, we kind of, I want to take the opposites and I want to bring them together, and I want to unify a synthesis point of joyful discipline. Joyful discipline. So a lot of times, especially as a trainer and a coach, people will say, I'm having trouble being disciplined about this thing. And the first question I now know to ask is like, well, are you sure you want to do that if you're not able to do it? If you're not making yourself do it, if you're not engaging with it regularly, are you sure you actually want to do that? And usually the answer is somewhere in between, right? Not everybody is going to say a hard no. Not everybody's going to say a hard yes, but there's something to be found. There's something for us to find together in the process, right? Maybe what you think you want is not quite exactly what you do want. And so you have to engage with a process of self-analysis, self-observation, and conversation with yourself. Is there something that is there something about it that inspires you, but it's not quite the thing? One of my teachers used to say, yeah, a near miss, right? It looks like the thing, but it's not quite the thing. It looks like the thing, but it's not quite the thing. And can I engage with a joyful practice if I don't really want to do something? Usually not. It's going to be forced on some level. And I don't want us to, especially in this time, as we're all moving toward, I hope, a deeper level of authenticity with ourselves, moving toward something that you have no interest in just so that you can say you're good at it, right? Do you want to be a badass, or do you want to feel like a badass? right? And what is being a badass for you? What's cool to you? What is it for you that is deeply aligned with what you're trying to bring into being? So, that kind of brings me to this idea of that when we're framed up on this joyful discipline model, we're more interested in a sense of becoming, or allowing ourselves to engage in this constant process of becoming, rather than forcing or directing ourselves into a process. When we can ease into joyful discipline, it's allowing an authenticity to emerge naturally. It's a very gentle becoming, rather than a forceful shaping or making. I'll share a story about stacking wood. When I was stacking wood for an elderly friend of mine up in Vermont, I was just moving up there, and I was meditating a lot on esoteric traditions, and I was meditating on the Masonic tradition. I had been kind of questioning whether or not I wanted to go down that route. And I noticed, what everybody notices when they stack wood. Certain pieces of wood stack better with other pieces of wood. And if you really need to build a tall stack of wood, it's really important that every layer be uniform relatively, or at least uniform enough that it keeps its shape. And I was thinking to myself, this idea of masonry, Masonic traditions, and the pyramids, and how we build these crazy structures. And the phrase just like hit me like a punch. It was, the bricks need to be uniform in order to build a structure. And I was meditating on this because I ultimately decided not to go down that road. Because for me, as a teacher, as a walking my authentic way, the reason I ended up in Vermont was not to make everybody uniform, was not to make everybody the same. I don't want everybody to be stackable. I don't want everybody, as the old song goes, to be just another brick in the wall. I want everybody to be the brick that they naturally are. I want everybody to find this natural, authentic resonance inside themselves and allow that to shape the becoming. And this comes much more from my Taoist sensibilities than anything else, right? This idea that the crooked tree is never cut down because it's not useful. And so as a result, it lives a long life. I'd rather be the crooked tree than the straight tree that's cut and used for a board. I'd rather make myself appear useless to anyone else and remain useful to my ecosystem over a long period of time. Because a tree is not valuable if it's cut down. A tree is valuable if it collects sunlight and allows squirrels to live in it and feeds nutrients back into the ecosystem. And so it's not the usefulness of the tree to be straight. It is the usefulness, actually, from an ecosystem standpoint, from a living ecosystem standpoint, that the tree keep living, that the tree keeps living. And so at the core of that is authenticity, is genuine resonance. And when we feel something, we can all relate to the moment when we've had a conversation with someone and it feels truly resonant, because it connects with our internal authenticity and it allows us to be ourselves truly and fully. It allows us to present ourselves more fully through the continuing to resonate. All of the best practitioners I've ever met, for me, are happy doing what they do. They love playing the way that they're playing. And because they love it, they do it often. And because they do it often, they're better at it. I'll quote Mike Tyson again, because the dude was just such a good boxer. But there was a documentary made about his life years and years ago. But in it, in the line just sticks with me, you know, in its feeling. Beware the joyful warrior, right? Beware a boxer with a smile on his face, because that dude is working out. That dude is training and loving it. And when it comes to the thing, he's going to be nasty at it. He's going to know exactly what to do. And that just totally always stands out in my mind, because I can think back to all of the moments in my life when I've wanted to be good at something. I've wanted to acquire something for myself, and I couldn't quite do it. I couldn't quite engage with it the way that I knew I had to get good at it. And I had to really pull back and retreat from the practice and say, why is it that I can't connect with this? Why is it that I can't learn this? Is it because I can't learn it? Or is it because I don't really want to? Am I holding myself back because I know something more than I'm letting myself know in this moment? Am I stopping myself from excelling at it because I don't really want to excel at it? We all have limited resources. We all have limited time. We all have limited opportunities. And how we spend those resources, how we use that time, how we use that motivation and energy is essential. It's essential that we aim ourselves properly. It's essential that we find our way through in a way which affirms the self and affirms that truth within you. And so I want to use today's video. I specifically, anybody who watches this, anybody who gets this far in with me today, and is struggling to find discipline, I would very specifically ask you to go back to your joy. Ask you to strip the artifice. Ask you to pull away from the badass imagery and find underneath it the motivating intention, the motivating intent that pulled you toward the thing to begin with. Away from obsession, away from compulsion, away from this idea that you have to make yourself more than what you are. When in reality, what we're trying to do is make ourselves exactly what we are. We're really trying to express from our deepest authenticity without artifice, without force. And I'll share another story because it feels important. My first martial arts school was called Shoshin Martial Arts. Shoshin is a Zen concept, and I wasn't going to actually talk about this, but feels right. Shoshin begins or is referring to something called beginner's mind. That I can always see something like a beginner, even if I've been doing it for 20 years, for 30 years, whatever it is. No matter how much of the skill I've mastered, I can always come back to it from this viewpoint of the beginner. And so when I teach, even in my most recent school, I would wear a white belt as often as I possibly could. The reason I would do that was not because I didn't respect the work I had done to achieve whatever black belt I had achieved, but because I always wanted to remind myself to view it with fresh eyes each time I came to the material. And, even within that concept, there's this like flagellation or this discipline, like, you're not doing it hard enough. You're not doing it good enough, so I'll cop to that real quick. But I'll also own that I knew inherently that the beginner is exuberant. The beginner is passionate. The beginner wants something in this pursuit for themselves that says, there's just something here that makes me feel more alive. Whatever it is, whether you want to be good at fishing, you want to be good at martial arts, you want to be good at reading books, you want to be good at talking to people, You want to be good at cooking. You want to be good at anything. There's this exuberance to become a student of the thing and to let the thing in itself teach us the way. That's Miyamoto Musashi. His whole bent is the sword will teach you how to fight with the sword. You don't need to do it any specific way. Let it teach you, right? If you want to be a good chef, you want to be a good cook, let the food teach you how to cook it. Let the thing itself teach you the way. And in order to do that, we have to not be trying to shape it. We have to not try to own it in each moment. We have to be present with it each moment. Taking in the sense experience, taking in the tactile experience, the smells, the sights, the sounds, the feelings that we get inside of ourselves that create the tapestry of experience. How is it that we can engage with that sense experience in a way which elevates in a joyful way our being deeper and deeper into the practice? And how does the joy send us deeper and deeper into the practice? And in order for me to understand that, in order for me to track that from time to time and many times throughout my life, I've had to just say, nope, I'm going to completely stop. I'm going to completely pull myself back and I'm going to immerse myself in whatever my being is sending me down the road of. And I go to a different discipline, knowing that all disciplines are linked. It's just me. I'm just a spine floating through space. Sure, maybe I have legs, maybe I have arms, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just a central nervous system. Maybe I'm just a spine rolling around on the ground, trying to find my way through life. If I'm getting good at something, I'm getting good at everything. If I'm getting good at something, I'm getting good at everything, because nothing is inherently separate from anything else. My understanding of conversation, my understanding of how to be a better partner in relationship, my understanding of if I can identify plants, all points to the same thing. It's one human experience of the universe. We are all in the same trippy experience that we call reality. And there's no separation. Right? We like to say, I'm going to get good at this, right? Because I want to be able to show everybody the certificate on the wall that says, I'm good at this. Joy is not about certificates. Discipline is not about certificates. Joyful discipline is not about certificates. It's about looking within and allowing that which is within and truly authentically the self, and allowing it to resonate out, allowing it to pour, to radiate off of me into the world around me. And in so doing, I give others permission to do the same. In so doing, I remind others that it's okay. I remind others that it's okay for me to say, hey, you know what? I want to express myself this way today. Maybe I'll never do it again and it won't be a discipline. But this day, it will be. This day, it will be the only discipline that I need because it resonates and it expresses an authentic version of me. And if I wake up tomorrow and I do it again, wow, that's cool. I did it twice. Isn't that interesting? And then we talk about habit building, right? We talk about what builds a habit. You got to do something for 21 days. So I'm going to flagellate myself for 21 days and say, do it, do it, do it. And then I can look at myself and say, look, I did it. I built that habit for the last 21 days. And so now I won't stop doing it. But instead, if I woke up every single day and from a place of authentic joy said, ooh, you know what I get to do today? I get to go running in the woods, or I get to go, um, study an author, or, learn whatever it is that's driving me today. Eventually, I can look back, wow, on all that work and say, wasn't that a fulfilling discipline? Wasn't that a fulfilling discipline? Um, and so as a result, I don't build my habits anymore from this place of what do I want to take, so much as what do I want to express, so much as how do I want to develop myself a little bit more today in this direction that feels meaningful to me. And so that's my challenge to everybody in these crazy times. Um, we all have things that we're feeling. We all have things that are resonating with us. We all have things that we want to achieve in our lives. If you haven't done it yet, there's probably a reason you haven't done it yet. If you're doing it now, there's a reason you're doing it now. And if you do it in the future, there's a reason you're going to do it in the future. But my challenge to myself, my challenge to you, my challenge to the universe is, can we do the thing that's important from a place of joy? Can I find a way to express my inner truth deeper and deeper through consistent effort over time? I'm going to give this caveat. Joy and comfort are not the same thing. It's not always going to be comfortable. It's not always going to be fun. It's not always going to be easy just because it's joyful. Punching something over and over and over again might allow me to express something more joy, right? I'm using the Mike Tyson thing, right? It might allow me to express my joy, but it's probably going to hurt. It's probably going to be hard work, right? And that's where the discipline does come in, that I do have to be able to work past the discomfort. And I say that specifically with one or two things in mind. And I will verge on the side of political in this moment and say a lot of us are going to be faced with uncomfortable truths. A lot of us are going to be given the opportunity to express from an authentic place in topics and around ideas that are going to be profoundly uncomfortable. And so if there's one piece I can kind of bring in here at the very end of my video, it is that don't allow discomfort to stifle your joy. If my joy comes from the desire to resonate out and build a better world, which mine does, that means I'm going to have to face a lot of challenges. That means I'm going to have to push the rock uphill, right? And I'm going to have to meditate on Sisyphus every day. I'm going to have to find joy in the pushing the rock up the hill. For those of us who have to process our privilege, for those of us who have to process the pain of history, for those of us who have to process the discomfort that maybe we've caused in other people's lives, that's going to be uncomfortable. It has to be uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean it doesn't move us closer to our joy. Because joy is knowing that me today and me in the future are the same me. That I can move closer to my joy through action over time. That I can express myself and allow myself to be in the state of becoming slowly, against all odds in some instances, facing this discomfort from a place of building joy, finding and expressing my joy. So wherever you're at in your learning journey, wherever you're at in your growth path, wherever you're at, know that I respect your journey. Know that I appreciate you doing your work right now in this time. Know that I appreciate you facing the discomfort of learning and mastering anything. Because to master something is the highest aspiration of a human. To master something is the highest good we can hope to achieve with our lives. To master and then to share with the world, to share our mastery with the world around us. And that is very much my discomfort in sharing, using social media, using this platform of YouTube, expressing and communicating with y'all. And so, anybody who's watched this far, thank you as always for watching. Thank you for joining me this morning. And I hope that you find your joy and that you express it over time in this disciplined way. And may you find all the support and solidarity and love that you can for yourself and each other along the way. And I wish you luck. I wish you luck. Have a blessed day. Enjoy whatever weather you're getting, and I'll see you tomorrow.